Hello, my name is Max Haroon. I'm the author of 7th chapter Dental Health, and what I'd like to talk to you about is foods according to various traditions. First of all, my disclaimer, I'm not a nutritionist and neither am I a health practitioner. So you might ask me, what gives me the authority to talk about the food? Well, the answer to that is that I spent 3 years doing the research for this book about the dental health. What I found that in order to have a good dental health, you've got to have a good general health. In order to look after your teeth, you have to look after your whole body. See, so, and as you know, that for the health, the prime factor for a good health is what you eat, the food. So I did the research about the food, and while I was doing the research about the food, what I found interesting, and no one has tackled this actually, I've seen many papers and presentations about the food and nutrition. No one has tackled the subject that food according to various traditions. And what I mean by tradition, food according to various civilizations, or the medicine or the science. So what I did, I categorized food into various categories, and I'll tell them what they are. But before we do that, let me ask you a very simple question. Why do we eat? Why we need food? Why?
Nutrients, vitamins, minerals, enzymes.
Okay, to get the nutrient, to get the nutrition.
To be healthy.
To be healthy.
Tastes
Okay.
good.
It tastes good. Well, that's the motivation to eat the food, but not why to eat food. That's for the second helping.
Hormones, feel good.
It gives hormones.
Gives us
Okay.
hormones.
Well,
Run our body.
very time.
To run our body, keep
To-
active, to keep alive.
Exactly.
It's a
See,
fuel.
it's a fuel.
Yeah.
Exactly. See, so actually, first of all, we eat food because we're hungry, right? Like somebody said. But why we are hungry? Because the body is asking for the fuel, and we need fuel to run our bodily functions. So that's prime reason why we need food. The second thing, like Clara was saying, we also need food for all the nutrients we need in our body, because there are so many vitamins, nutrients, antioxidants we need. You see, and most of them we can get from the food. So that's one of the reasons why we do that. But why we need the nutrient is simply because if our body, while functioning, like any functioning machinery, gets information. In order to fight the inflammation, you see, and to build the immunity, we need the food. And the food is the one which actually does it. And the third one is that, which is important, that food actually rebuilds our tissues. Do you know that 98% of our body tissues are rebuilt every year? So, you know, the saying is that what you are is what you eat. So look at that. That's true, because you see, whatever you've been eating, that's your body is. So there are three prime reasons why we need the food. So anyway, coming back to the subject, what are the different categories of food? The very first one, I would say, is macronutrient. Now, macronutrient, actually, you know, without knowing the word, are the simple three food groups we have, namely protein, carbohydrates, and fats. So this is the way the foods are grouped, and this is the way, and in scientific terms, it's called macronutrient. But talking about the macronutrient, we also need micronutrient. These are the vitamins and minerals we need, in addition to food, in minute quantity. The third category which I put together is called raw or cooked food. I will talk about that in a minute. And the fourth category is the food can be classified how much glucose level does it have? Because every food, particularly carbs, so when they are ingested, you see they produce the fuel, the glucose. And you see some food can produce the glucose very rapidly, while the others actually do produce the glucose, but they go slower. So what's the level of that? And the fifth category is the alkaline or acidic food. If you look at all the foods, you see, you will see either they're alkaline or they're acidic, and somewhere in the middle they're neutral. The sixth category is the fiber content of the food, and how much of the fiber you have in the food, which is important see for regularity and other things. Now, seventh one is interesting, because now we come to the old tradition. Japanese people used to categorize food, and they used to call it yin and yang. The food which gives yin energy, the food which gives yang energy, and this is called macrobiotics. The term has been around, the term started in Germany about 200 years ago, and but it was actually Japanese who followed the tradition.
It could be Chinese tradition, yin yang.
Well, that's in terms of energy, yeah. Yin yang is a Chinese thing as well, but macrobiotic is Japanese. Now the other one is the eighth one is Ayurvedic. Ayurvedic is the old Indian tradition, the way they're treated, the way they classify the food, and we'll talk about that as well in a minute. The ninth one is geolocation of the food. Now it's not the food, it's the cuisine actually, because you must have heard of the French cuisine, Southern cuisine, Cajun cuisine, Indian cuisine, and so on and so forth. So it's the geolocation, particularly Mediterranean, as we know, is very famous. A 10th one is, like Olga was saying, is organic. The food is organic or not. Does it have any GMO, which is genetically modified component? The last one is the healing food. You can look at the food, whether the food is healing or is it toxifying you. So that's another category in which we can. Now, of course, in my research, I come across many other categories, but I think let's keep down to this level. And I'll tell you a little bit more about all this. First of all, let's look at the macronutrient. Now, about the macronutrient, which is protein, your carbs, and your fats, if you don't eat them in the right combination with the right requirement, then you will not feel well and you may not be healthy. So it's important to have them in the right required amount. The thing about these three groups, that what nature has done, you find all of the three in most of the food together. Sometimes they are more, sometimes they are less. For example, let's take legumes. Now they have about 75% of carb and only about 16% of protein in it. And what happens, you see that all the food groups are actually equated with the calories. So what happens if you eat excessive amount of the food or the calories, you can have obesity, and that's one of the issues we have at the moment, present times. Now, although we eat regular food and all that, let me ask you, is any one of you actually even take a supplement? Protein, for example, or fatty acid? People do that. The second one is the micronutrient. Our body needs about 13 vitamins and about 60 minerals a day, although in minute quantity. Now, why do we need it? Because we need it, our food, our present food, the way it's processed and produced. We don't get all the nutrients that are supposed to be in the food. So there's a need to have supplement. And how many people take some supplement like multivitamins and all that? There you go.
Oh,
so, 1.5. Okay. So we actually need that if the food doesn't provide those supplements. Now the third category, the raw or cooked, is really interesting. We need raw food, reason being that anyone can tell us why we need raw food as opposed to cooked food?
Enzymes.
Because of the enzymes.
Means life in Greek. It means
Yeah.
life.
almost
So we
like.
need to lift.
So in other words, you see, if the food is cooked, you actually lose those enzymes, right? And not only you lose your enzyme, but you actually lose your vitamins and other nutrients as well. And talking about the enzyme, interesting thing about the raw food is that when we eat any cooked food, our body has to supply enzymes, digestive enzymes, to process it. But when you eat a raw food, actually it has got its own enzyme, so body doesn't have to have enzymes to process or digest it. And Clara talked about Brian Clemens Institute, Hippocrates, and what they do, any sick person when they go there, they do nothing but treat the person with raw, wholesome food for the whole week. Juices, wheat grass and all that. And I've heard wonderful stories that people go there with cancer, almost they're dying, and they come out healthy.
In other words, they derive all their vitamins from raw food, seal liver and seal meat has a lot of vitamins.
Right.
If you cook it, they don't have ability to cook either. There's no wood there are no vegetables, there are no fruits.
Yeah, actually, it's a good example you mentioned about the liver and all that. They did a study of Eskimos who were way back, they were using raw blubber. And they were healthy, no heart issues at all. The same Eskimos were given cooked blubber, and that's what they do now. See, that's what they do now. And what they found, now they're eating the same amount of blubber, as they used to eat raw, and they now have cardiovascular diseases. So that's interesting, the power of the raw food.
Obesity is a problem in the Arctic among the Eskimos or Inuit.
True, true. And that's some of the classification actually. See what I did. After the classification of the food, see what I did. I didn't dwell much in my book about the classification, the traditional categorization of food. I actually focused on the principles derived from this categorization, and metabolism actually is the issue, and actually I wrote one of the principles I wrote in the book. Anyway, I'll give some tips that how you can eat raw food and it's still digestible and palatable. Any idea how can we do that?
Juicing.
Juicing, really good example. Second one is sprouting. You might have noticed if we had a mung sprout, I specifically asked these people that when we come here, they should give us a mung sprout. And that's a really good way to liven up or enhance those enzymes you have in mung. Now what actually happens in lots of beans and seeds, that they have lots of enzyme, but they are dormant. And even if you eat as it is, it's not going to make any difference because they're not going to break down in your digestion system. So sprouting is the way of enhancing it, making it live. You can actually sprout any kind of bean. Mung is a good example.
Nuts.
Nuts. Talking about the nuts, you see, there are two ways you can do it. You can sprout it. It can be sprouted. Some of them can, some of them can. For example, almonds. You can't sprout them. So what you do, you actually soak them. It's a much better way of making those enzymes available. And the third one is
No.
You can leave it.
very old. The third one is a very old traditional thing is fermentation of the food. Now, like pickling is a good example. How many of you eat fermented food?
German.
Something you all eat fermented food, but you're not aware of it.
Yeah.
Let me give you some examples. Cheese is fermented food. Yogurt, Greek yogurt is a good example of fermented food. Kimchi, kefir, which is something like a yogurt. Japanese miso, soup is fermented.
Sauerkraut.
Sauerkraut is a very good example. actually is one of the healthiest food you can find if you can do it properly, your own, as opposed to buying a processed one in the bottle. Anyway, let's go to the other one, which is the glucose level. The glucose level, as I said to you, is the way the glucose is released from the food. Some of them get released very quickly, spike up your glucose level. See, and that's why you can see the classic example of diabetes people, they just cannot have the food, it spikes them very high. So, how do they measure it? They measure it on a GI index, which is glycemic index. So what we can do, we can look at the food and we can classify, does it have high GI or it is a low GI? Let me give you some examples of high and the low GI. Potatoes, ice cream, white flour, these are examples of high GI food. And the low GI foods are rice bran, oat bran, apples, berries. Most vegetables and nuts actually are low GI. And of course there are some in between too. And the scale actually goes from 1 to 100. And when I said low, we're talking about 50 or 54 or less. Now, Hank mentioned about obesity in our bag, you see. And my tip to you is that if you learn the many if you look at many metabolic conditions we have, or such as obesity or pre-diabetes or diabetes itself, and they actually are they relate to the body's ability to handle glucose and how it is stored. So that's one of the things. See, that's why you be careful of the GI. And the fifth interesting category to categorize the food is it alkaline or acidic. Now, how do we measure that? We measure that by using a pH scale, and I'm sure you're familiar with the pH scale. It goes from 0 to 14. Anything from 0 to 7 is acidic, 7 and above is alkaline. Our body functions really well on the scale of 7 or around 7. And it is sufficient to say that acidic food is not good for you, but at the same time, alkaline food actually can help you with your immunity issues and other metabolic issues you have. So the examples of acidic foods are, the number one is the sugar. Okay. Any other example of acidic food?
Oranges?
Tomatoes.
Okay. Most of the proteins actually are acidic, and the meat and all that. Grains, even the grains themselves are acidic. Any stimulant like coffee, tea, tobacco, they are acidic. All the
processed.
and the
Processed.
processed food. They are classic example of acidic food.
Are all citrus foods acidic?
Pardon me?
All citrus fruits are acidic.
Oh, acidic, you're right.
I've been to a health show and they tell us the limes
Yeah.
are alkaline.
They're alkalizing. What happens? They change to in your body when you digest them. They're alkalizing for your body. They're acidic when you taste them because they're sour, but they change in your body to alkalizing. So that's why you should wake up in the morning and have a glass full of lemon squeeze in it because it alkalizes your body.
Lemon?
Lemon lime is the same thing.
lime.
Lemon, either whatever
It's
you
when you
prefer.
process
So lemon
it.
isn't that acidic then?
They
Well,
sour.
it's like
And in your
Tastes
body.
pretty sour to me.
Yeah, it is, but in your body it's
Difficult
alkalizing.
to imagine.
Can I
So
just
anyway, water. Sorry.
about the balance, the alkalized acidic,
Okay.
it has to be all balanced. We can't eat everything alkalizing either because that's actually deadly for our body. So is too acidic, but it all has to be in balance. So it is important to introduce alkalizing food into our diets, more of it than the acidic,
Totally agree.
but we do need a balance in both. We still need a little bit of the acidity from the grains, and then if somebody eats meat, a little bit, but it has to be balanced.
Well, actually, the good
Yeah.
ratio is actually 60%, 60 to 40. If you have 60% alkaline food, then you're okay. But of course, in that range is okay.
Is
So
it-
what
is it milk?
what actually?
Alkaline?
Millet is alkaline. The grains in general are mostly acidic. But
Yeah, millet and quinoa.
quinoa are a little, better, like lower on the scale, yeah.
See, when you look at a food, you don't have to look at just one aspect of the food. You have to look at all the aspects. You know, the GI aspect, the fiber aspect, and all that. See, so when it comes to those grains, which we call ancient grain, so they are really good in a way because see, they give you other things like fiber, proteins, and so on and so forth. And they're not genetically modified, and they do not have a thing called gluten, which actually is a big allergy you see nowadays. Anyway, so any ideas why acidic food is bad for you?
It depletes minerals out of your bones. Sorry.
Depletes.
Minerals out of your bones.
Okay.
It makes your cells deviate so that cancer, they're looking at any type of illness that you have. Once your body becomes more acidic than alkaline, disease is produced. So we know that, or what I'm looking at is inflammation causes disease, and that it depends on what your diet is. And if you are a more acidic diet, then the disease will manifest itself in a variety of different things, from arthritis right up to cancers. So that if you go to an alkaline diet, you actually re-energize the cells and you take it out of a certain disease state and you go to health.
Bang on. So we I'll summarize what Carol has said in 3 different things. Number one is that, and what Clara said, they raise acidic food, they raise blood sugar levels too quickly, so they are glycemic on a high index. Second thing, acidosis, which is a type of acidification of the body, will decrease the body's ability to handle nutrients and vitamins. And the third one is it's also like Carol said, it decreases the energy production in cell, as ability to repair as well. And then of course the acidic food will never detoxify, and that's why, like Carol was saying, that if you don't do any detoxification, if you can only have hot water with lemon in it, you see, that will detoxify your body. Because it's alkaline. Okay.
Also, having a too acid a body, you're killing off your friendly bacteria as well, which then leads to parasites and all kinds of other things going on. The acid brings such an imbalance in the intestinal system.
Yeah.
Where does apple cider vinegar fit in?
Well, it's acidic, definitely, for sure. But, like I said to you a minute ago, see, when you look at food, don't look at the food in its own entity. Look at the efficacy of the food. What's good for? It's one of the best, alternative treatment you can ever find on earth is apple cider vinegar. There are documented hundreds of uses of that apple cider vinegar. Anyway, let's go to the fiber
If you don't
content of
have
the food.
lemon, you can use apple cider vinegar. Same thing.
Okay.
So what's alkaline food?
With the mother in it when you buy
What
it.
are
Putting the
alkaline
mother
food?
in it.
Oh,
Mother.
example of that?
Mhm.
Water
Just a
with,
full kind of
with
mess
lemon and all
inside.
that, like I
It looks
mentioned.
ugly.
Okay.
Most of the
Who's mother?
fruits, except the citrus, they're alkaline.
Okay.
Banana.
Yeah, most of the fruit, except the citrus fruit, they're all alkaline. Most of the vegetables are alkaline, and some of
Say
them more.
uncooked, if you have it raw. When I did my conference in November for the Hygienic Society,
Yeah.
I looked at an alkaline diet. I wanted to provide food that was alkaline. And what I found out was I had to provide all raw food. Anything cooked, you change the alkalinity, and it was very difficult to do a 100%, although you don't want 100% alkaline, but that was my goal, just to see what I could do, and it's impossible, unless you stay raw.
Totally
We have to
agree.
be consistent.
I already gave you one tip in the morning, you see, about the hot water and the lemon. The second tip I can give you is that, you see, that every morning you should have some vegetables with the fruit and some protein as a smoothie, if you like, the very first thing in the morning. So that will help you not only to detoxify, but will give you the fuel for the whole day. We talked about obesity, although I want to tell you, my talk has got nothing to do with obesity. My talk is not about the diets we have, various diets and the fats we have, but I will say, see, that one of the reasons why people are overweight, and I'm just giving you one of the reasons, the prime one, because actually we don't pay attention to the breakfast at all. As a matter of fact, how many people really have good breakfast before they start the day? See, there you
Good
go.
breakfast.
A good
That's
breakfast.
the Eastern European upbringing here. It's the biggest meal of your day.
Right. You see, if you don't have a right amount of protein to start your day, you know what happens. See, the body
Eat
thinks.
yourself.
Eat your what?
Breakfast eat yourself. Lunch share with a friend. And the dinner give to your enemy.
Yeah, it's true. We have a saying
Yes.
similar to that. It's something
Yes.
similar, yeah.
That's
I heard
very
it
good.
was breakfast like a king, lunch
Breakfast like a
king.
king,
And
lunch
dinner
like
like a
queen,
pauper.
like a yes, yeah. That's what he say.
Okay.
Now,
Okay.
can you then perhaps explain with antacid for your stomach? You need acid in your stomach to basically absorb vitamin B12.
Yeah.
So where is the balance and why is there acid very good?
Well, okay. Well, let's look at why the acid is there. Number one question. And we'll move from that. We need acid to digest our proteins. So that's why acid is there. And that's the first thing a protein actually hits you when you when you take it from your mouth. First thing is going to hit your stomach. Because the protein needs the longest time to digest. You know that that's why people say, when you eat your protein, you say, don't eat anything like a starch, because it will go and sit over there while the protein is being digested like a beef or meat. So we're not saying that we don't need. As a matter of fact, over the age, you see people actually have less of acid in their body. Remember Ravi mentioned a minute ago about apple cider vinegar. People who think they have acid reflux, that's the bulge which is coming out, you see, in the morning or in the night. And sometimes it's so bad that people think it's heart attack. As a matter of fact, you see, I've been in the hospital many times for some other reasons with some other people. I've seen many people sitting over there, and I asked them, why are you here for? And they said, oh, I got heart pain. And later on, when they come back, I asked what happened. They said, oh, no, they told me it was just my acid reflux. It's so bad. So, apple cider vinegar is an excellent remedy. And particularly if you are a senior, I think I would advise you that you should take apple cider vinegar before you meal, at least once a day. I hope that answers your question.
So that is a drink then, apple cider vinegar. I thought this is.
You can put it on your salad when you make your salad. If you like the
Oh, so
taste
that
of
is
it, you
quite
mix it
good
with
for-
oil and salad. You can. It's a vinegar, but it's made of.
Right,
Apple
so
cider.
Yeah, it is
prefer
a
a
vinegar.
balsamic.
Yeah.
Because that's
Yeah,
too strong.
it's a
Yeah,
fermented,
different than.
Okay.
fermented apple, but done in a different way. And then again, you see, they say if you're taking apple cider for health purpose, as opposed to a dressing, then make sure it is organic. It's non-filtered, it's non-refined. Okay.
Oh, I see.
All right. So that's fiber content, and I just want to give you an example. We eat about how many grams of fiber we eat every day?
Not enough. Not enough in the Western
Not enough.
culture. You should have
In,
about.
in terms of gram, we eat
20.
only about 5 to 10 grams a day. You know that? While our body needs 25 to
20.
30 grams a day. So what they say that every meal should have at least 10 grams of fibers. Now 10 grams, what it look like? Let me tell you what they look like. Half a cup of lentil or split peas is 10 grams of fiber. 1 cup of elderberries or blackberries, 3 tablespoons of psyllium seed. Anyone take psyllium seed at all? You know what they are? That's fiber, soluble fiber. 1 ounce of oat or wheat bran. That's why I say the Scottish people always like the porridge in the morning, because not only gives them a fiber, but also gives them protein as well.
That's what I need every morning, is rolled oats, but the large flakes.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, great.
Just soak them.
No, I don't have to soak them, I just boil the water,
Oh, just put them in the water.
and then put it in the water, and then turn it half down, and just have that. And then I put a fruit on top, and then I put cinnamon and ginger on top of that.
Good.
Sounds delicious. Well, there you go. See, all right. So let's move on. Macrobiotic. You see, we won't dwell much on it, but like I said, it's a Japanese tradition, and according to that tradition, the principal foods are I would say the stabilizer foods, and they are like vegetables, whole grain, which includes brown rice, barley, millet, oats, spelt, rye, and teff, and berries. These are the main principal food according to macrobiotics. And there are secondary foods they have, and they call it like meat, vegetable, fruits, nuts, and seeds. So the protein, according to that tradition, which gives yin, but according to that tradition, it's a negative energy, while yang is a positive energy, which is the principal food. Okay, let's move to Ayurvedic. That's interesting, obviously, because I grew up with that in India. Ayurvedic tradition classify food actually in many ways. Okay, and one of the ways they classify the food is the taste of the food. According to Ayurvedic, there are 6 different tastes of food, and you can classify every food whether it's sweet, sour, salty, it's pungent, it's bitter, and it's astringent. Now bitter, if you they don't have it here in our file, I'm going to recommend you see one of the Indian cuisine has a bitter lemon as one of the important part of the cuisine. They said if the food is not complete unless you have bitter lemon, because your body needs bitterness, and that's why in Europe you see they have a Swedish bitters, they call it, or something like that.
Swedish bitters, yes.
And it's important. It's to detoxify your body.
Your liver likes it.
Astringent smell is something that you get from herbs. By the way, herbs are alkaline. Just to let you know, all the herbs, like turmeric or chili or whatever. There's another way Ayurvedic classify the food. Again, we will not go into details. Every food has got either a hot property, it gives you heat, or it's a cold property, it gives you cold. Okay, it's very difficult to grasp this concept in Western medicine because we only think ice cream is cold, so it's cold, but that's not the way Ayurvedic classify that. Now, what they go further than that. What they do, the Ayurvedic medicine actually look at people and they classify into 3 categories of people. Okay, and they are called Vata people, Pitta people, or Kapha people. And they say that the food for Vata is only good for them and not for Pitta people, and so on and so forth. So every category, these are the, when I say categories of people, actually they go by the constitution and the shape of the person, okay? Nothing else. All right, so any questions so far? We finished with the categorization of the food, no? Okay, let's go
One thing that I would like to suggest and recommend to everybody is I was at a lecture last week. Dr. Hardy Lineback is a professor at the University of Toronto. He's just retired out of the dental profession, unfortunately. He was a speaker of the advocate of non-fluoridated water. Now, when we talk about organic foods, if you live in an environment where these organic foods are being watered with a regular water source, you're getting contaminated with fluoride anyway. Mm-hmm. So, and if you live around plants, like in Hamilton and Toronto, where all of the steel mills are, your environment is contaminated with the same type of poisons. So it's something that I would like everybody to be looking at, working with your governing boards within your own individual cities to get fluoride out of the drinking water. That's issue